The broadcast initiated similarly to countless others, with Donald Trump radiating positivity and Ivanka appearing poised as they took their places on the set. However, situated directly opposite them, Jasmine Crockett rested in silent expectation, prepared to reveal a confidence so astounding that by the program's conclusion, nobody, particularly not Trump or Ivanka, would remain unaltered. The brilliant studio illumination flared, casting a warm, golden radiance over the platform, while cameras recorded the spectators cheered, and subsequently, with undeniable charisma, Donald Trump made his entrance. He did not merely arrive, he dominated the area, recognizing the acclamations with a customary gesture and a wide smile, absorbing the ovation like an individual assured that the evening belonged to him. The lens focused tightly, recording every stride and calculated movement as Trump straightened his attire, raised his jaw, and displayed the brand of self-assurance that had sustained him during innumerable assemblies, addresses, and consultations. At his side, Ivanka moved with elegant refinement, her expression flawlessly secured as though painstakingly practiced, and she assumed her position, folding her legs, precisely personifying a vision of tranquil command. The moderator, anxious to establish a cordial atmosphere, commenced by stating, "Mr. Trump, millions are viewing this evening and having encountered numerous obstacles throughout the years. Please inform us what motivates you and what constitutes your foundation of fortitude." It presented the perfect inquiry for Trump, and he inclined toward the audio device, his eyes surveying the spectators while his powerful, unwavering, and nearly practiced vocals occupied the chamber. "Family. My relatives sustain my momentum. They have consistently been my anchor, including Ivanka, Baron, every one of them. It remains the most devoted, most incredible, and finest assemblage anyone could request." The gathering exploded with acclamation again, and Trump's grin broadened as he rapped the table, gently signaling as though to validate that this was indeed the veracity. Ivanka's expression remained steadfast as she glanced towards him and subsequently returned her focus to the throng, her countenance indecipherable to the lenses, showing what seemed to be a dignified daughter backing her parent. Yet underneath the severe illumination, her motionlessness suggested something more profound, something the viewers could not presently comprehend, and there sat Jasmine Crockett, positioned on the reverse side of the platform, silent and enduring. She refrained from applauding with the spectators and did not agree when Trump extolled his relatives, while her acute and unwavering gaze remained locked upon him as though she awaited the exact instant. Trump, conversely, was in his preferred environment, reclining to relish the cadence of his own rhetoric, stating that when you hold leadership, you must possess fortitude, because individuals examine your kin to understand your identity, and my relatives, my offspring, my allegiance, my principles are what characterize me. The spectators cheered once more, and Trump executed his recognizable salute, the motion that declared the matter finalized. But in reality, the matter was not finalized. It had barely genuinely commenced. While Trump declaimed with such satisfaction, Jasmine Crockett remained seated, wordlessly projecting an alternative variety of assurance, for she was neither awed nor influenced by his address. She held information that nobody else in the vicinity was equipped to receive, and she did not intend to keep it concealed much further. The moderator looked momentarily at Jasmine, detecting her taciturnity, but maintained the focus upon Trump a while longer, as it made for effortless broadcasting to have Trump discussing lineage with the crowd enthralled and Ivanka beaming as though everything were impeccable. Nevertheless, this flawless tableau contained minute fractures unseen by the majority, such as the manner in which Ivanka momentarily averted her gaze when her sire cited Baron's name, or the minor clenching of her digits upon the armrest of her seat. Paramount was the composed certainty in Jasmine's countenance that appeared to murmur that she possessed the actuality, and the atmosphere within the studio started to alter. The cheering diminished, while a hushed, weighty expectancy descended upon the chamber, and although the viewers did not comprehend the reason, they could sense that an occurrence was developing. Trump naturally was unaware, being too absorbed in constructing his account and too immersed in his own rhetoric to notice Jasmine's penetrating stare. Ivanka's tense expression, or the slow mutation of the assembly's enthusiasm into a tangible feeling of apprehension. He proceeded by asserting that the nation requires robust domestic units and nobody possesses a more resilient family than his own, and precisely at that specific juncture, Jasmine inclined anteriorly just sufficiently to indicate her preparedness. The spectators possessed no concept of what was approaching, and Trump was similarly oblivious, although Ivanka perhaps suspected, which clarified her absolute immobility. But Jasmine understood, and the explosive revelation she was nearing would convert that boastful address into the ember that started a conflagration no individual could suppress. The clapping was still dissipating when Jasmine Crockett eventually shifted forward, having been mute until this juncture, with her hands reposing placidly upon the surface and her vision locked purposefully upon Trump. The host was poised to transition to the subsequent subject when Jasmine's vocals sliced through the atmosphere, steady and acute, as she initiated by stating, "Mr. Trump, you converse frequently regarding fortitude, concerning integrity, and regarding how your kin define you, but the complication is that narrative is not as truthful as you make it appear." The broadcast center dropped into a deep quietude, for nobody had anticipated such an explicit confrontation on a live transmission, and Trump blinked, temporarily startled, yet swiftly recuperated. He inclined anteriorly, narrowing his eyes at her, and demanded pardon, while asserting his family is the sturdiest known to everyone, and warning her not to commence with absurdity. But Jasmine did not recoil and did not retreat. Her self-possession remained nearly unsettling. She continued by noting, "That is precisely the point you offer one image to the populace of the faultless patriarch, the faultless offspring, and faultless allegiance. But what if the reality is dissimilar? And what if you have been concealing something highly authentic regarding your own lineage?" A low whisper moved through the spectators as they rearranged themselves in their chairs. Ivanka became rigid. Her grin endured, but her eyes darted toward her father for the initial time before quickly returning to Jasmine. Trump compelled a chuckle, gesturing with his hand, dismissively calling it preposterous, phony, and asserting she was fabricating items total refuse. But Jasmine leaned in nearer, her voice even steadier now. She declared she was not inventing anything and would not state this if she lacked validation for the public merits. The facts, Mr. Trump, they merit. Knowing when a chieftain is obscuring something of this magnitude, particularly when it involves family and the persona you market as your fortitude. The moderator appeared astonished, conflicted between preserving command of the program and permitting the strain to develop, while the lens focused tightly on Trump's visage, which was flushed and tensed, his habitual assurance visibly fracturing. Then Jasmine posed the inquiry that immobilized the entire chamber, asking why he does not inform them who Baron's actual mother is, and the quiet that ensued was burdensome, nearly unendurable. The viewers gasped audibly, with some shielding their mouths while others whispered frantically, and the sound of shifting seats occupied the studio as Trump slammed his hand upon the desk, his vocals escalating in fury. He bellowed, "How dare she call that a repulsive falsehood," and claimed she did not know what she was discussing, calling it disgraceful, absolutely shameful. But the more he vociferated, the more tranquil Jasmine became. She did not increase her volume and did not debate in return. She merely observed him, permitting his wrath to occupy the area, then softly yet decisively, she stated, "It is not a falsehood nor gossip, it is factual, and I possess the records to substantiate it." The spectators breathed sharply again, this time louder, while the host leaned anteriorly. Hands joined, uncertain whether to intercede or allow the scenario to proceed. Ivanka's hands clutched the arm of her seat so firmly her knuckles turned pallid. She did not stir and did not utter a word, but her motionlessness communicated volumes while Trump moved his head, attempting to laugh it away, though the chuckle sounded vacant, and he claimed she was deranged, totally insane, and nobody credits that. However, the chamber was no longer siding with him. The audience was not applauding. Currently, they were not grinning. They were observing Jasmine. And Jasmine realized she held their attention. She did not require shouting, she did not need to equal Trump's volume for her authority, resided in her composure and the silent significance of her utterance that the truth is not invariably agreeable, Mr. Trump, she remarked, her voice slicing cleanly through the strain. Yet when you obscure the actuality, when you construct influence upon a deceptive image, that is when people merit knowing, and this evening they shall, while cameras recorded every specific Trump's flushed countenance, Ivanka's solidified gaze, and Jasmine's steadfast serenity. The studio no longer resembled a platform, it felt like a tribunal, and Jasmine was submitting the initial segment of her argument. The suspense in the atmosphere was intolerable. Everyone understood she was on the verge of revealing something immense, and the sole question was what precisely she would disclose subsequently. The environment within the broadcast center had entirely transformed. Whereas moments prior it was replete with acclamations for Trump's boastful remarks regarding family. Now it was charged with an alternative element, a tension so dense one could almost contact it physically. Trump inclined forward, his visage inflamed with rage, striking his hands upon the table, once again declaring this atrocious and asking if she thought she could sit there and assault his kin on live television, calling her a scandal. Jasmine a scandal. His vocals resonated throughout the chamber, but the spectators no longer cheered. They were not applauding. They were observing, some leaning forward with expanded eyes, others whispering to their neighbors, their mouths ajar. Jasmine remained perfectly motionless, her tranquility a distinct contradiction to Trump's wrath. She angled her head marginally, as though watching a petulant infant throwing a fit. Then she stated softly that the louder he yells, the clearer it becomes that he does not desire this reality to emerge. That statement struck like a mallet. A wave of sharp intakes of breath went through the assembly. Trump shifted uneasily, glancing about as though the viewers had somehow deceived him. Then Ivanka finally stirred, her voice, usually placid and regulated, carried a quiver. She declared this absurdity absolute nonsense, claiming her father has always spoken the veracity regarding their lineage, and asking how dare she even intimate something so offensive. She leaned toward Jasmine, her eyes blazing, accusing her of only doing this to humiliate them, saying she does not care about the facts, she just desires attention. But Jasmine did not accept the lure. She kept her voice subdued, measured like a surgeon performing exact incisions, stating, "No, Ivanka. This is not regarding embarrassing anyone, this is regarding answerability. When a chieftain conceals something so immense, something that could alter how populace view him, the public merits knowing, and this is not regarding me, it is regarding integrity." Trump interrupted, jabbing a digit in Jasmine's direction, accusing her of fibbing, trying to demolish his family, thinking she can come here with phony documents and defame them, asserting it won't succeed, nobody trusts her. Yet again, the chamber narrated a different account. The audience was not jeering Jasmine. They were not clapping for Trump. They were silent, waiting, ravenous to witness what Jasmine would perform subsequently. Ivanka attempted again, her voice sharper now, her refined smile entirely vanished, stating she does not comprehend the damage she is causing, as families merit seclusion and children merit defense, calling, dragging Barron into this disgusting. For the initial occasion, Jasmine's expression softened. She nodded gradually, as if recognizing Ivanka's entreaty. Then she responded with quiet firmness, acknowledging she is correct. Children do merit protection, but this is not regarding Barron. This is regarding the falsehoods told around him. When a youth's existence is utilized as a buckler to defend a politician's persona, that is when the actuality matters most. The audience murmured again, this instance louder. Some even applauded gently, not in celebration but in recognition of Jasmine's composure. Trump struck the desk one additional time, his voice wavering with fury, asking if she thinks people care about this, asserting they do not. They care about fortitude, about governance. Nobody cares about her fake theatricals. Jasmine reclined in her seat, her calmness almost frigid against his wrath. She looked him directly in the eyes and queried, if nobody cares, then why is he so terrified? The room erupted with gasps. Even the host could not conceal the astonishment on his face. Trump froze for a second, unable to reply, His mouth opened, then shut, his customary rapid retorts nowhere to be located. Ivanka, now pallid, reached out to position a trembling hand on her father's arm. Attempting to steady him, she realized what was approaching. She could sense the burden of the tempest Jasmine was about to unleash. Jasmine turned slightly toward the audience, her calm voice traveling across the studio, stating, "The truth is awkward, shakes the terrain beneath powerful individuals, but the veracity is also straightforward, and tonight everyone viewing deserves to hear it, supported by evidence no one can refute." The spectators suspended their respiration. The camera zoomed nearer. The host leaned in. Trump clutched the border of the desk so firmly his knuckles turned white. Ivanka sat solidified. Her eyes locked on Jasmine, silently begging for her not to proceed further, but it was too late. Jasmine possessed the chamber the instant and the authority, and she was only seconds away from revealing the confirmation that would fracture everything. The studio fell completely silent. It is not the variety of silence born of tedium, but the kind that makes your epidermis tingle. Everyone was waiting. The viewers, the cameras, the moderator. Even Trump and Ivanka appeared to freeze for a fraction of a second, uncertain of Jasmine's subsequent maneuver. Then, with unhurried, calculated motions, Jasmine reached beneath the table. Her hand reappeared, gripping a dense manila binder. She deposited it gently in front of her, as though the folder itself bore more significance than anything Trump had uttered all evening. The host's eyes expanded. He leaned closer, whispering to ask if those were documents. Jasmine did not reply to him directly. Her eyes remained fixed on Trump and Ivanka. Her voice was placid, yet sharp enough to slice through the oppressive atmosphere, stating, "You accuse me of prevaricating. You accuse me of inventing narratives, but I do not speak without verification, and right here in my grasp is evidence." Trump immediately interjected, his voice resounding, calling it counterfeit, all counterfeit, telling people not to believe a word she utters, claiming it is all fabricated, another witch pursuit, another repulsive smear endeavor. But his vociferation only rendered Jasmine's stillness more potent. She slowly opened the binder. The noise of parchment brushing against parchment reverberated louder than his vocals. The audience leaned forward, struggling to view Jasmine, withdrew a pile of papers and held them aloft for the cameras, stating, "These are not hearsay, these are not viewpoints. These are documented files, judicial papers, infirmary records, DNA reports, all indicating one reality that has been concealed for years." Trump struck his hand on the desk, calling them falsehoods, claiming those are altered, asserting you can fabricate anything currently. Photoshop phony autographs, phony DNA, calling it refuse. But Jasmine did not flinch. She turned toward the lenses, raising her voice just sufficiently for the entire audience at home to hear every utterance clearly. "These documents are authenticated. They have been cross-verified, signed, and notarized. This is not rumor, this is fact, and the reality is this. Ivanka Trump is Barron's actual mother." The room detonated gasps, occupied the air so deafeningly they submerged the host's attempt to recover command. Audience members gripped their mouths, some shaking their heads, others whispering in incredulity. Trump stood up, aiming a digit at Jasmine, his visage redder than ever, bellowing, "How dare she call this an assault on his family, on his offspring, saying she should be ashamed of herself and ordering them to extinguish her microphone, extinguish it right now." But the microphone remained active. The cameras continued recording. Ivanka, pallid as a phantom, sat frozen. Her lips separated slightly, but no words emerged. Her eyes darted toward the folder, then back to Jasmine. She appeared as though she desired to refute it, to struggle back. But something restrained her. Motionless, it was the indisputable weight of the documents. The host attempted again to intervene, stating, "Crockett, this is a phenomenal assertion," but Jasmine interrupted him, her voice tranquil and unwavering, stating, "Phenomenal assertions require phenomenal proof, and tonight I have delivered it. These papers demonstrate the chronology, the medical substantiation, and the legal autographs." Trump's narrative regarding his kin is not what he declares it is, and the populace merit. Knowing, the audience gasped again. Some even applauded, not out of jubilation but out of pure astonishment that someone had ventured to oppose Trump with such audacity. Trump, now shivering with wrath, shouted that this is illicit and she will pay for this. Now she and everyone who disseminates these falsehoods will rue it. But Jasmine did not even gaze at him anymore. She turned back to the lenses and spoke directly to the viewers watching at home, stating this is not about annihilating anyone, it is about truth. Leaders cannot request confidence while concealing their deepest secrets. If we are to hold authority liable, then no deception, no matter how intimate, can be shielded. The studio was mayhem, Trump yelling. Ivanka silent, the host overpowered the audience, buzzing like a tempest. But Jasmine sat, settled her papers still in her grasp. Her tidings hanging heavy in the air, the reality was no longer whispered. It was right there on live broadcast for the entire globe to witness, and nothing could place it back in the container. The studio had become a whirlwind. Trump's vocals thundered across the platform, demanding the cameras be severed. Ivanka sat solidified, her taciturnity more penetrating than his rage. The host stammered, attempting to wrestle back command, but the evening no longer pertained to him. It pertained to Jasmine Crockett. She did not increase her volume, she did not need to. The folder in her grip spoke louder than any contention. The spectators sensed it. The observers at home sensed it, the overwhelming weight of reality pressing down. And then, in the midst of the tumult, Jasmine leaned into her microphone. Her tone was calm, steady, but every word carried immense influence. This is not about mortifying a family. This is not about private theatricals. This is about accountability, because when chiefs prevaricate about their most intimate verities, they demonstrate to us they are prepared to lie about anything. And if they can maneuver their own narrative, how can the public trust them with the nation's narrative? The words cut through the vociferation like a blade. Trump struck his fist on the desk again, but fewer people were listening. The audience's focus had irrevocably shifted. They were hanging on Jasmine's every syllable. She held up another folio from the binder, tapping it lightly, stating these documents show what was hidden. But beyond this secret, it is the act of hiding itself that signifies. Concealment is influence by controlling the account. Leaders protect themselves from examination. They protect their image, their finances, their sway, and the longer the falsehood stands, the stronger it becomes. That is why revelation signifies. The host finally ceased attempting to interrupt. His face, pallid and stunned, mirrored the sensation of the audience. There was no halting this. Now Jasmine had taken command of the night. She turned toward the cameras, speaking directly to the millions viewing, asking them to ask themselves this: why do politicians conceal these truths? Why go to such lengths to bury family connections, rewrite personal histories, and silence anyone who queries them? The solution is straightforward. They dread scandal. They dread losing command. They dread the populace discovering that the persona they vend is not the existence they lead. For a moment, the room was silent again. Even Trump, red-faced and trembling, had run out of words. His anger was still boiling, but he couldn't outshout the profound weight of what Jasmine was saying. Now, when secrets like this are hidden, she continued, her voice stronger, it is not just about family seclusion. It can affect legal matters, inheritance, custody levies. It can influence political decisions, can even be utilized as leverage behind closed portals. And every time a truth is buried, public confidence weakens. That is why exposure signifies. Not for rumors, not for headlines, but for accountability. The audience began to murmur again, not with gasps this time, but with nods of comprehension. Some were even clapping softly, the message finally sinking in. Jasmine set the papers back into the folder and folded her hands on top of it, stating she knows the hazards. Speaking out against powerful people comes with menaces, comes with legal conflicts. It comes with attempts to devastation your name. But I believe truth outweighs fear, and if we are ever going to demand honesty from those who direct us, we cannot permit them to bury their falsehoods beneath refined addresses and flawless smiles. She paused, permitting the silence to stretch just long enough for the weight of her words to settle. Then she looked straight into the lens one last time. I'm done. So I'll leave you with this inquiry. If a leader hides something as intimate, as monumental as this, what else are they hiding from you? The audience went quiet again. No claps, no gasps, just the heavy stillness of people realizing they had heard something they could not unhear. Trump stood, glaring fists clenched his face. A tempest of fury, Ivanka kept her eyes on the floor, her stillness speaking louder than any denial ever could. The host, lost for words, finally whispered, "We will be right back." But the lenses had already recorded what signified the falsehood was fractured. The proof was on the table, and Jasmine Crockett's query now pertained to the viewers at home, a query that would linger long after the illumination went dark.